Hi, I'm Jeanine Hackl. I am in my third year of Indigenous social work at First Nations University, Canada. And my class that I'm taking right now is an Indigenous class on truth and reconciliation and resurgence. It's been an amazing class, and this is part of my final, so I hope you enjoy. I am from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, from Treaty 6 land. I moved to Regina just about 2 years ago, so I'm now residing on Treaty 4 territory. It's been an amazing experience, and I've been very lucky to work with the people around here. So, Truth and Reconciliation. Truth and Reconciliation was a government-run commission that was dedicated to righting the wrongs of the residential schools of the 1800s and 1900s. The main goal of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was to find out the truth of what was really happening at the residential schools. So these schools began in the 1800s, and the aim was to kill the Indian in the children. The residents of the school endured harsh physical abuse, harsh verbal abuse, poor nutrition, poor housing, and there was about 3,200 deaths estimated because of the poor health and tuberculosis and diseases that were spreading around there. So there was a 5-year timeline for the Truth and Reconciliation Act to commend. They did extend it to 2015 just because there were so many survivors that wanted to tell their story. And these stories were, often brought up much trauma. It was a very emotional experience for them, and has resulted in lots of intergenerational trauma, which is still happening today. So even part of the TRC report was uncovering the names of all these children who passed away. And all the documents were pretty much destroyed by all the government and church officials. They knew that something was wrong, and they wanted to try and hide it and cover it up. So during this, in 2015, there was a call to action urging all levels of the government, provincial, federal, First Nations government, territorial, to come together and change the policies and programs and to make a valid effort and to repair the harm that was done by the residential schools. So some of those recommendations were child welfare, health, education, justice, children programs, and the list goes on. They knew that they had to try and make some of the wrongs into a right and try and fix what happened during the residential school era. So what I find super interesting was the two-row wampum. And so the two-row wampum is old. It's one of the oldest treaty relationships that the original people of Turtle Island, which is now called North America, and the European immigrants. So the two-row wampum belt is a symbolic record of the first agreement between the European and the American Indian nations on Turtle Island. This wampum belt became a foundation and relationship of the non-domination balance and harmony between these two groups of people and the environment. So for those of you who don't know what a wampum belt looks like, this is what it is right here. Not that. Can you show it? So the belt consists of 2 purple rows of purple wampum beads on a white background. The 3 rows of white beads symbolize peace, friendship, and respect, and those separate the purple rows. So the 2 purple rows symbolize 2 paths, or the 2 vessels traveling down the same river. One row symbolizes the Haudenosaunee people with their law and customs, while the other row symbolizes European laws and customs. As nations move together side by side on the river of life, they are to avoid overlapping and interfering with one another. So what the heck happened? In this framework, people do not own the land, but belong to the land as part of a creation, and they safeguard it on behalf of the coming generations. Before European contact, resources and wealth were shared in most Indigenous societies, and production was geared towards meeting human needs rather than the manufacture of commodities to be bought and sold in the market. The Tua Wampum remains a treaty relationship that the Haudenosaunee and other Indigenous nations defend today, even if the Canadian state has failed to uphold the principles of the treaties it inherited from the British Crown. We should not be surprised, though, that the British Crown and the colonial Canadian state have been unwilling to respect the self-determination of Indigenous people to uphold this Tua Wampum. Still, non-Indigenous people can learn the history and inform others about the original framework based on the genuine peace, respect, and friendship with all Indigenous people. So what needs to happen? Colonization and residential schools have severely fractured the connections to Indigenous teachings, way of life, and relationships between the Indigenous people and Western society. Returning to the teachings and acting on these techniques and our relationship that was once formed so strong hundreds of years ago will help people to continuously live together at peace. Indigenous people have never passed a law telling Caucasian people or the Western society how to live. Yet, we continuously pass laws trying to change who they should be and continue to challenge their political and spiritual life. What is so wrong with living within these diverse cultures? I don't know. I think it's beautiful, and I think to have more than one culture is incredibly knowledgeable. Non-Indigenous people need to learn this history and inform others about the original framework based on the peace, respect, and friendship with Indigenous people. I am a fully Caucasian woman, and I love the study of Indigenous. I'm sad that I never got to learn most of it in elementary school. It was an option for myself in high school. But I chose the Indigenous social work program specifically so that I could learn the Indigenous ways and the systemic issues that so many of the Indigenous people face. And as well as learning from these teachings is a step towards decolonization and a beginning to honor the way of life and relationship with the many great Indigenous people that I've met along the way and along my journey of becoming an Indigenous ally. These injustices that Canada is facing affects all nations. It's not just Indigenous people, it's not just Western society, it affects all of us. We need to reconcile these differences and come together. One thing that I'm very passionate about is the water. There is many First Nation communities that have unhealthy water and toxins that they cannot consume the water. But yet, water is a basic need of life. Like, the governments really need to get this to come together. Another example is the Davin School that is just here close to where I live in southern Saskatchewan. It's recently been changed. The school's been changed from the Davin School to the Crescent School. That is a part of Reconciliation. So many people think that it might be just a small little change, but it really does make a big difference. I want to encourage people to do the research and ask the questions and find that elder to work with and have in their back pocket. Indigenous education is super important and it needs to become a mainstream part of the education system from a young age to a grown-up age. And I guess my last thing is, I'm doing this for the child taken and for the parent that's left behind. Thank you for watching my video, and hopefully I'll be able to post some more for you. Thank you.